so that they can also participate fully in the construction and beyond the construction of the nuclear power plant. Of course, we've also been negotiating 123 agreement with the US. It's over a year now. We hope to conclude the negotiations very soon, hopefully, so that we can move forward with our cooperation with the US. So these are some of the highlights of what has happened so far with respect to Ghana since the last engagement in Accra. There are more things to be done. Our siting activity will move to the next phase, which is the detailed site evaluation studies, which we are already putting in plans and arrangements to get that done. Of course, we did an initial grade integration study, but we are going to do a detailed one, having settled on technologies that we really want to deploy as part of the program. The regulatory infrastructure will still continue. Of course, in our interaction, they, graded the regulatory development, so the initial drafts are enough for us to proceed on the development stages until we hit construction and all of that. And then capacity building is also another area that we continue to develop and also continue to explore various cooperation arrangements to ensure that we build the capacity of Nuclear Power Ghana, the capacity of the regulatory body, and of course, capacity of Ghana Atomic Energy Commission also to function as a technical support and scientific organization to support the operator and also the regulatory. So, just a few of the things that has happened. Of course, our stakeholder engagement has been very effective, both at the public level and also at the community level, making sure that there is support and sustainability of the support from all fronts. So just to mention a few things that really has happened since our last USANES meeting.
Well, thank you. It sounds like it's been quite a busy year, and I look forward to asking you the same question, I hope next year, since it sounds like there's a lot in the works. Fidel, give us a sense, please, of where Rwanda is right now in its readiness for nuclear energy.
Thank you. First of all, I need to thank the CEO of Nuclear, Mr. Justice, for inviting me to this second US-Africa Nuclear Summit. I had the opportunity also to participate in the first summit in Ghana, and I can see the evolution in the talk that is being given here. Things are moving in the positive direction. So for Rwanda, the option of nuclear energy started being considered 7 years ago, in 2017. And we quickly realized that we do not have any other option rather than to go nuclear. For Rwanda, we are no longer considering whether we have to go or not to go for nuclear. We have decided to integrate the nuclear energy into our energy generation mix. And from the beginning, I think we were the unique country that decided to go for small modular nuclear reactor technologies. For reasons that I'm not going to expand on here, but that's the technology we chose. And we started from the beginning to initiate the collaboration with different companies that are developing these technologies. Our idea is to put our young nuclear engineers, as was mentioned by the keynote speaker. We have already started from 2017, sending our young students to study nuclear engineering and science and technology programs in different countries. And currently we have a good number of young engineers that can help us implement those projects. So our approach is just sending these young engineers to those companies that are developing this technology so that we work the development path together instead of sitting down and waiting for the product to hit the market. That's what we are doing with different startups, and we would be happy even to collaborate with many US startups that are doing that kind of activities. So I have to say that the Rwanda Nuclear Energy Program still now is having two flagship projects. The one nuclear power projects based on small modular nuclear reactors. We have completed the pre-feasibility studies. So we have an advantage in Rwanda regarding the siting because Rwanda has a small area. And we have only one province that is flat. Many of you knows that Rwanda is referred to as a country of 1,000 hills. So we do have many hills. And the only province where it is flat and we can, and the seismology is good, is one province. So the siting was very easy for us. And we have also an advantage of land law, different from many countries in Africa. So by our law, all the land belongs to the state. So individuals have the right of use, but they don't own the land. So this makes it easy for us to get access to land and to develop the projects. So then we completed the pre-feasibility study. We already know approximately what it will be, what it will cost. We have the human resource development plan that we are implementing. We know the people we need to train and in which areas they need to be trained. So we are implementing this project, and the roadmap for us is to have at first the first unit operating by 2032. Now, we have also another project around the research reactor project that we call at Center of Nuclear Science and Technology. For this project, we have completed the feasibility study. We have completed the siting. We even have the preliminary designs of the center and the configurations. And the next stage now, we are going to start the negotiations regarding the EPC or other forms of contract that will be used in order to implement these projects. And again, for this project also, we have the human resource development plan so that we can train people that will operate and use this center. And also we have included also the human resource development plan for our national regulator so that they can help us and go along with the licensing process and all other things they need to do. And we think it is in our reach that some units in this center that are not directly dependent on the research reactor will start operational in 2028. So briefly, that's what I can say about the National Nuclear Program of Rwanda. Thank you.
Fidel, thank you so much for such a fantastic overview. South Africa currently has 2 nuclear reactors that are generating 5% of the country's electricity. Give us a sense of South Africa's readiness for more nuclear power and also for advanced reactors, please.
Thank you, Jenny. South Africa is one of the pioneers in nuclear energy. Similar to Korea, we started our research reactor in 1965. And so we've been in the business quite a long time. We commissioned the first unit in 1984 at Kuiberg. That was a 920 megawatt reactor, and then in 1985 we commissioned the second one. So that's been operating for the last 40 years. And also, what we've developed is we were also pioneers in the small modular reactor space with the development of the PBMR program that started in 2002. I think it was eventually shut down in 2010, and the Chinese showed us and validated our technology by building the technology using a similar fuel and a similar high temperature gas, SMR as well. So we very much in the nuclear energy space in Africa. We've got an established nuclear regulatory space. So we've been looking at benchmarks, international benchmarks, international standards, and we are constantly monitored and regulated by the international fraternity in the nuclear industry. We've also got 2 shovel-ready sites for large-scale reactors, practically shovel-ready sites. And we're looking at starting a procurement program quite soon. And we started a nuclear energy procurement program back in 2007, and we developed a 10 gigawatt procurement program, and the local industry responded marvelously to that, and it was able to localize about 33% of the first 2 units. The second 2 units could be 40%, and the third 2 units could be 50%. So we were on a similar trajectory to Korea with their nuclear build programs and transfer of information and knowledge and things like that. But sadly, in 2008, the financial crisis happened, and we had a moratorium on any new builds in South Africa. We got it back again in 2010, and then Fukushima happened. And that set us back another 5 years, you know. So we've had quite a lot of bad luck. Currently, we've got NGOs that are resisting nuclear builds anywhere in the world, and we're contending with that. And we are sticking to the program and having a very transparent procurement process to keep these procurement processes out of court, you know. So we got quite a lot of situations in South Africa, but I think we will soldier ahead and pursue it and be very successful in the near term. Back in 2007, we had our industry. It was very buoyant and expanded. South Africa is an industrialized country, and as I said, we managed to localize about 30% of that. But in the construction sector, we had the big 5 EPC companies, multidisciplinary companies that could do everything, you know, from civil works to piping to manufacturing and things like that. Today we've got the Agile 50, you know, and that has been a very complex situation to manage for the new builds as well. So we've got to look at partnerships, international partnerships, local partnerships, to get the orders of magnitude right on the construction and manufacturing and the material supply capability that we need for the new build. Fortunately, Koeberg has reached its 40-year life. It was licensed for 40 years, and to get an extension of the licensing, it had to go through various upgrades, including steam generator replacements and things like that. And that's helped revitalize the local industry to get the capabilities there. My company qualified quite a few companies that are currently delivering work in containment on Koeberg. And but it was a complete revival for our local industry, because over the last 40, 50 years, we've established an O&M culture, an operations and maintenance culture in South Africa in the nuclear industry. but certainly not a construction culture and manufacturing culture in South Africa. But the Kuberg Life Extension Program definitely had a great impact on getting the local industry started. For the supply chain that is not familiar with the nuclear industry requirements, the first mistake you're going to make is to tender for the work. If you don't have any savvy on the nuclear industry requirements, and so we've got to definitely upgrade the knowledge and awareness of the local industry, of the local supply chain before we even engage in these tendering processes. We'll start the procurement process quite soon, so we've got 18 to 24 months to prepare our industry to tender for the work and sign contracts and mobilize to site. It's not a short time, it's not a long time. It's very difficult, and we will probably call on a lot of the experts in the previous panel to come and assist and help South Africa out. Together, that mobilization of the nuclear industry workforce is going to include the youth, it's got to include gender in the industry, and fortunately South Africa is way down the road there, including apprenticeships. And I'm very impressed at Hinkley Point C creating 1,200 apprentices within the youth as well. And definitely the universities need to kick up. We've got 3 universities that are teaching nuclear sciences and engineering as well. So we need to pick that up as well. But as many speakers have emphasized, that the success of a nuclear build program is going to be about the people that's going to build it and operate it and look after it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that fantastic overview of nuclear energy in South Africa. And Jack, am I allowed to say that you've also been working in African countries for many decades?
Yes, many
Okay.
decades, 1970s.
Many decades, like Don Hoffman. So what do you think over the course of these decades are the most encouraging signs that you're seeing? What are the indicators you're seeing that point towards nuclear readiness in the continent?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody. If you listen to me, you'll understand that I'm not an African, right? You know, don't sound, my accent is not African. If you look at me, you'll see that I'm not an African American either, right? But what you don't know about me is I really am an American African. An American African. That's true because I've spent so much time in Africa, and I've been very fortunate. I have visited 35 countries out of the 54. I have done business in most of those. Not just in nuclear, because I had a whole other lifetime doing infrastructure development throughout Africa. I was doing railroads and power lines, hooked up with NAM Power, railroads in Mozambique, Malawi, and Zambia. I did air traffic control initiative with COMESA throughout there. And so I've been very engaged in Africa in infrastructure. That gave me the opportunity to learn a lot about many countries. Now, when you ask me the question, is Africa ready? I mean, the general answer is yes. But if you go down to countries, not all countries are the same, clearly. We all know that. I've visited Niger a number of times because of the uranium mines. Niger is an interesting country. Now, having recently had a coup, they're clearly not ready for a nuclear reactor up there. Okay, but Ghana, very nearby, is ready for it and has a process and can be engaged in that, as can other countries, certainly South Africa. Egypt is part of Africa, believe it or not. That's where I go tonight. And they are engaging in nuclear power. So the answer is, in general, yes. Now, can they provide all the components? Can we get into the supply chain?
No, but neither can the United States. That's the interesting thing. The United States has to import a lot of components for its nuclear power plants going forward. So just because you can't do it all doesn't mean you can't do it. You have to team up with people, American companies, and perhaps others to supply components to help you, and you can do that as long as you follow the general outlines that's being given to you here about workforce training, engineering, building your capacity so that you can have the workers and the people engaged in that. It's interesting, most people don't know that the first heart transplant in the world came from South Africa, at Cape Town, the first heart transplant in the world. The largest radio telescope being built in the world right now is in Africa, headquartered in South Africa, but with dishes being displayed throughout. It's called the SKA, Square Kilometer Array, run by Rob Adam, formerly run by Rob Adam, who also ran NEXA. So there's a nuclear science related. Africa can do science. Of course Africa can do science. Africa can do engineering. Look around Africa at some of these amazing engineering opportunities. Some are older, like the Kohor Bassa Dam, or the Aswan Dam, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And there are other things as well. So the answer is yes, Africa is ready. Africa is capable. Africa needs assistance. And this is where the United States has to come in and help. We'll come back to that on my next question. Stay tuned. There's more for me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention.
Jack, thank you so much. I'd like to unpack some of those things a little bit. Stephen, Ghana has laid so much of the groundwork for nuclear energy infrastructure, especially with Ghana Nuclear Power, the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, the research reactor, the university system. But I'd like you to talk a little bit to us about the pieces of infrastructure that we don't always associate with nuclear, but that are really crucial, like roads and transportation, and trades like building and welding, construction. Please.
Yes, I'll start from the example you gave. The logistics and the transport sector is very critical for a successful nuclear program or nuclear industry. Already, as part of our program, we're thinking of, okay, so how do we transport the equipment, the heavy equipment from the port to the site? Are we doing it by road? Can our road infrastructure accommodate that? Or do we have to transport it through the sea by building jetties and small ports close to the site because we have our site along the coast? So the transport industry is very, very important, movement of radioactive materials from one location to the other. So these are things that, especially following through the IEA milestones, you might not really, focus on right from the beginning, but very important to, the whole sector of the nuclear activity. Another area is manufacturing and industry. And again, here it's important to look at it, from the country's perspective. Are you embarking on the nuclear program as a means of supplying electricity because there's the demand for electricity, or you are embarking on a nuclear program as an industrial activity that will catapult industrial transformation in the country. And such kind of thinking and analysis will, influence the kind of investment that you will have to put into such a program. But of course, it also depends on, in the overall goal, how many reactors is envisaged to be deployed over a period of time. But it's a lot of investment. And the investment has to yield revenue and profit also. That is another area. The health sector, is also very important. Going into a nuclear activity, making sure that the health workers are trained and equipped to be able to handle radiological emergencies. And typically, you may not factor all these things as part of your milestone approach, but very important for a nuclear activity. R&D, research and development, not just for the operators, but also the long term. How does the country advance? For example, Korea has done it, moving from just a receiver of the technology now to developing the technology and exporting the technology also to overseas. They are also making sure that there are collaborative platforms that as a new and embarking country, you can collaborate and get experience and exposure from advanced countries, to as part of your planning and nuclear activity. I will also mention issues of cybersecurity, which is also very important. I think maybe 2 years ago or early last year, Ghana's electricity distribution company was attacked, and it became a very big issue. So cybersecurity is also very important. That beyond the traditional 19 infrastructural issues that when you follow through the IEA milestone approach, you focus on a daily basis. These are other infrastructures that, when it is well established, not necessarily only for the nuclear, but also supports other sectors of the economy. Again, issues of I've talked about the transportation industry, and then the cybersecurity. I'll talk about maybe I will end here. I think I have touched on the key things that probably I plan to talk about. Thank you.
Stephen, thank you so much. Fidel, from your earlier comments, it sounds like Rwanda also has a workforce that now is looking for an industry and in need of an industry. But talk to us a little bit more about Rwanda's efforts to build that workforce.
Yeah, thank you. As I said, when we started in 2007, we practically had no one with a background in nuclear engineering. So myself, I'm a nuclear physicist. There was another colleague, much younger than me, with the same background, and that was all. So the first thing we realized that even before we start thinking of nuclear energy, we need to send people to study so that as soon as possible when they come up, they help us to refine the project. That's what we did. We started sending people. At that time, we had no plan. We didn't know how many and in which areas we need to train, but we started sending them. So now we have a plan. We know where we need to train. And we also partnered with our national university, our University of Rwanda, the College of Science and Technology. We worked on a program of nuclear science and technology with them, and it is passing the final stage of accreditation. So we are dealing with the issue of accreditation at the Higher Education Council with the issue of laboratories that are not available yet. But still yet it's a problem of some egg and chicken. So when you want to train people in nuclear engineering so that you can have nuclear installations in the country, then the accreditation agency asks for laboratories in that area. So it's something that is very controversial. But I believe we will find a way out and start our program. So now we have a plan, and we are committed to continue implementing this plan. And we are aware that that is the backbone that we ensure the success of our programs. That's why we put emphasis on the nuclear, on the human development plan. So we are even open. We are open to using a human resource available in other countries. So we are not limiting to Rwandans. If there are some human resource available in other countries that are not being used, we are ready to consider these people and integrate them for the successful implementation of our projects. Moreover, I said we went for SMR at the beginning because of our internal reasons. But we have a precedent of Slovenia and Croatia that are co-owning a nuclear power plant. So if we decide to think of big traditional nuclear power plants, we are open to discussing with our neighbors on how we can co-own a traditional nuclear power plant, and then instead of each country struggling to build a nuclear power plant, I think if 2-3 countries get together and form a coalition, it can be easier to mobilize finances and it can be easier to implement this project. We are open also to this idea. I'm glad we had the Minister of Energy of Tanzania. So we have our Kenyan colleagues. I didn't see any Ugandan colleagues here, but we are open to that idea. So, and we are even ready to start discussion in that option. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Desmond, talk to us a little bit about how to de-risk the nuclear energy supply chain in African countries.
Okay, there's a lot of challenges. The nuclear industry is not easy to penetrate, but certainly doable. And we've demonstrated in this in South Africa quite a lot. If I look at 2 projects, the UAE Baraka Power Station and Hinkley Point C in the UK. Okay, they 2 different projects, different vendors. In Hinkley Point C in the UK, they had aspirations to localize and maximize the localization on that project. With the UAE on Baraka, there wasn't any demand for that. Baraka wanted a power station as quick as possible and as cheap as possible. Local content can increase your price quite significantly, but it shouldn't. But the UAE had a different strategy to Hinkley Point C. And Hinkley Point C, with the help of Fit for Nuclear, localized on the first 2 units about 60%, 50%, 60%. And with Sizewell C, they're looking at 75% local content. And that is a magnificent achievement for an industry that was fairly dormant, like South Africa. They've been operating nuclear power plants for ever and a day, but they were certainly not ready for the construction of nuclear plants as well. But to de-risk the nuclear industry and its supply chain for construction, material supply, engineering, manufacturing as well, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. You know, in 2007, when we were able to localize about 33% of the gold program, that was a 300 billion rand spend in the local industry over 16 years, and that would have changed the landscape of our industry today. Never mind the added power that we could have generated on the grid today. You know, so But to look at how to bring the local supply chain into a complex, rigorous industry, we need to have a graded approach, a step-by-step approach. And that would be starting with orientation workshops, alignment workshops, to educate them on the nuclear industry requirements. How is it difficult to work, how is it different to work in the nuclear industry as opposed to something that you're more familiar with, like gas to power, coal-fired power stations, waterworks and things like that. We've got a lot of competences in South Africa, but certainly there's got to be an alignment and an orientation to get our industry ready to work in the nuclear industries. And that could be a number of surveys that you can do with the companies as well, including gap assessments. We can look at an organization, and if they have a good quality culture and a good safety culture in their normal operations, they're very much aligned to participate in the nuclear industry. But then after the gap assessment, we've got to start a rigorous qualification process. ASME NQA1 can take 6 to 8 months to implement it in an organization. So we've got to factor that time in, and we've got to not only implement the program and the management system, but also train the management system in the people that are going to be implementing those projects. And then we can get them set up for a nuclear vendor compliance audit or an approval audit. We don't do the audit itself, but we facilitate the nuclear vendor and put them in front of an audit that they get approved to be a nuclear supplier. In the nuclear industry, there's a level 3, which is the balance of plant, and that is ISO 9001 on steroids. Then there's safety class level 2 and safety class level 1, and those are a hell of a lot more stringent, but there's a lot of opportunity in the safety class level 2 and level 1. But there's also a lot of work that is ISO 9001. It's not safety class, like the roads, the security fences, the site preparation and things like that. There's a lot of work that the industry can do immediately as well. But what we need to do is obviously build our capabilities and competences on conventional projects as well, demonstrate that we are capable of building these projects and inspire confidence in the nuclear vendors to actually select your company on the supply chain. If you are struggling on conventional work, having a good safety culture and a good quality culture in conventional works, you certainly are going to be ignored by the nuclear vendor, because he's going to see too much risk in working with you in your company. But you can definitely inspire a lot of confidence in what you're currently doing. I cannot emphasize enough to spend this time to develop a safety culture in your organization and a quality culture. And that takes time. Okay?
Thank you so much. Jack, earlier today, and I think in just the opening moments of his remarks, the Special Assistant to the United States President, Nana Menya Ayensu, mentioned the Akasambo Dam, which of course you and I have discussed many times. Talk to us about the importance of building not just nuclear energy, but also other types of energy infrastructure and really other types of infrastructure in new to nuclear countries.
Thank you. I wouldn't say shocked, but I was very pleased when he mentioned the Akasambo Dam and the project. Now, there are many of you here from Ghana. You already know this story, but give me an opportunity to tell this story to the rest of Africa, because it's very important for them. during the time when Africa was gaining, the countries were gaining their independence from the colonial powers, it was recognized by President Eisenhower and also his successor, President Kennedy, of the importance of Africa for the United States, for a lot of different reasons. We don't need to go into the reasons. But President Eisenhower decided that he wanted to make sure that Ghana had significant electrical power. And they started a project called the Akosambo Dam, which is something I've spoken to groups about many, many times. In fact, there's a very excellent book, I don't have a copy with me today, but a very excellent book called the Volta River Project, okay? Because what Kennedy did was a public-private partnership. He brought Henry Kaiser, the aluminum company, and they set up Valco, the Volta Aluminum Company, Volta River Aluminum Company, and the U.S. government built the dam, and Henry Kaiser built the smelter, and it still operates to this day. It's still there, and the dam still operates, although it gets silting problems from time to time, but nonetheless, this was a very successful project. And what it did was it led to an example. The Soviets built the high dam in Egypt along the same principle. Because U.S. gained influence in Ghana, Soviets gained influence in Egypt, and so it went. The United States also gave the first nuclear reactor to Africa. Who knows which country got the first nuclear reactor of any kind in Africa? Who knows this? Yes, lady? Yes, you there. I'm sorry, that's not correct. It was the Belgian Congo. It was before it became DRC. But yes, in Kinshasa, at the university, is the first reactor ever built in Africa. It doesn't operate today, but that's where the U.S. wanted to put some influence. Time goes by. Africa develops under colonial power still in some fashions, and the United States' role in Africa continues. And China comes into Africa in the recent couple of decades. The United States is, I wouldn't say dormant in Africa, but not active in Africa. And China comes in, and China begins to invest in infrastructure in Africa, and the United States is not. And China becomes more active. And now it's the time for the United States to come back to Africa with something that Africa needs more than some roads or some ports or some things, which is energy in the form of nuclear power. And this is where the United States excels, ladies and gentlemen. We have undoubtedly the best nuclear power facilities, plants, designs, SMRs, and microreactors of anybody else in the world. And we can provide that as long as the United States government engages with the United States industry to move forward for Africa's benefit. We've ignored Africa too long. I'll say that again. We have ignored Africa too long. It's time for Africa to gain what the United States can offer to them, and we need to work together more and faster for the benefit of both of our countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jack. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time, so I want to do one more round, and I'm going to ask everyone to keep their answers to about a minute. Stephen, I want to start with you. Let's say that we're several decades into the future, and US DOE has organized about a couple dozen USANES conferences. Paint a picture for us of what a nuclear future looks like in Ghana.
Yeah. A nuclear future in Ghana means energy security and reliability, making sure that our energy infrastructure is diversified with a stable baseload power that will support industry, for industrial transformation and growth. As I said earlier on, we're looking at our nuclear industry not just as electricity supply base, but as a whole industry to transform and also to drive other sectors of the economy. Again, as a nuclear future for Ghana is to seek economic diversification, as a boost to local economy and also to attract foreign investment. in the local industry. And we want to do all this, in the long term, taking into consideration the future. The future is very important, and nuclear provides us that flexibility to achieve the present needs whilst also meeting future challenges and future goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Fidel, again, in just a minute, paint a picture for us. Tell us what a nuclear future in Rwanda could look like.
As my colleague Stephen from Ghana said, so we are introducing nuclear industry to trigger the socio-economic transformation in our country. And with such objective, we look at it as a booster for industrial development, but also the local industry involvement has to play its own role. So the impact on economic growth of the country will be more significant if we can maximize the local industry involvement. I look at it as an optimization problem. We have the current status of our local industry. We know how they start. We can upgrade those who can be upgraded to meet the standards, the requirements of the nuclear industry. But our task is to maximize their involvement with the first unit and then continue until we get localization of our nuclear industry, maybe after 2-3 units are put in operation. So that's how I look at it, and we are committed to this. We are welcoming anyone who wants to partner with us along this journey. We are looking at American companies that are doing this kind of job. Recently, we had a memorandum of understanding with Nano Nuclear, a startup company with a very bright idea that we want to work together to develop this idea until its realization. We are looking at partnering with TerraPower. We have tried to make contact with them. We are interested in innovative nuclear power technologies because in our situation, water reactors are not an option. We want innovative technologies that use more efficiently the uranium resources and with a back end that is not burdened by the management of spent fuel. So that's where we stand, and we welcome any American company and other companies that can move along with this development path with us with mutual benefits. Yeah.
Fidel, thank you so much. And I promised His Excellency Dr. Zerbo that we would talk a little bit about microreactors. And that's what I always think of when we talk about off-grid uses for nuclear energy. So talk to us a little briefly in a minute about the value of nuclear power in African countries, including its off-grid uses.
Okay. With nuclear energy, you can certainly develop and implement a balanced and sustainable energy mix for your country. And especially with all the regional grids, we can do it as a region, not only as a country. But this basically dovetails into the energy trilemma, which deals with energy security as a priority, energy affordability second, and then sustainability of the environment as well. So that's the ideal energy mix that you should develop for your country or region. Nuclear energy ticks off all the boxes in the energy trilemma. It's the only technology that provides energy security, affordability of electricity, as well as environmental sustainability. But it also creates a lot of jobs. I was going to swear, but a lot of jobs. sustainable jobs, not only during construction, but the 60 to 80 years of operations and maintenance. It's definitely a good job keeper. An abundance of energy always grows an economy. And we've seen that all over the world. It also exposes you to a lot of other safety class projects like LNG and hydrogen. Hydrogen blew up one of our coal-fired power stations recently in Nairobi power station, and that was the hydrogen in the generator cooling system, and it blew up the station completely. It lifted the roof off the turbine hall. Fortunately, it didn't kill somebody, but nobody's talking about the safety of the hydrogen industry. We're all raving about green hydrogen, but the safety needs to be addressed, and the nuclear industry can definitely help that industry as well develop. Intensive energy users can definitely look at small modular reactors. They can also invest equity into large-scale reactors in exchange for green certificates for the offtake agreements as well. And that's the Mancala and the Exceltium model, financing model that is used successfully in Europe. But one of the big purposes for small modular reactors is repurposing our retired coal-fired power stations. South Africa is still 80% dependent on coal for its power, and it's going to be retired quite a lot in the 2030s, and that's where SMRs can play a valuable role in repurposing our power stations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Jack, just 1 minute remaining, but I would really be remiss if I didn't ask you to comment on the nuclear fuel supply chain.
Impossible. I can't do it in a minute, okay? I can't do it in a minute. But I will say that there is a fuel cycle supply chain. Africa is part of it. Africa produces uranium. Africa used to enrich uranium at one point. It doesn't need to. It can buy it from elsewhere. But there is room for Africa to participate in the fuel cycle because there are deposits elsewhere. If your programs get big enough, then you can expand the fuel cycle into other aspects of it as well. I would just like to close my comments and this panel, if you don't mind, with a comment related to things I've heard throughout. As I've traveled to Africa, I've been in South Africa where they have the Cradle of Mankind park, right? Okay. And of course, Tanzania, anybody from Tanzania still here? They've always felt that near Olduvai Gorge, that they have the Cradle of Mankind. I think somebody from Kenya the other day said they have the Cradle of Mankind, and Ethiopia thinks it doesn't make any difference. The Cradle of Mankind is in Africa. Okay, somewhere in Africa is the Cradle of Mankind. So I just want to close for everybody to realize we all come from Africa. So it's our home for everybody. Let's help our home succeed. Thank you very much.
Well, please join me in thanking this excellent group of panelists. And I'd like to invite everyone for a quick coffee break, and we will come back at 3:45 for the next session on managing the supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gordon. So again,